Have you noticed how easily we fall, not only in love, but into everything? Into thoughts, into others, into time itself. It happens before we know it, as if some quiet gravity pulls us beyond our edges. We call it falling. But perhaps it is more like sinking into the rhythm of life, the way a leaf descends through still air, not by effort, but by surrender. And yet we fear the fall. We are taught to rise, to climb, to stay above. We build walls of certainty, name them strength, and still, some part of us longs to lean, to loosen, to let go. There is a strange beauty in that tension, the space between control and trust, between knowing and not knowing. It's where all real things begin. When you stand at the edge of the ocean, and the horizon disappears into mist, there is a whisper inside that says, "Step closer." But the mind answers, "What if I drown?" This is how we live, drawn forward by curiosity, held back by fear. We want to touch life completely, but only on our terms. We want love, but without the risk of losing. We want to breathe deeply, yet never exhale fully. Maybe that's the quiet tragedy of our time. We reach for connection while gripping control. We want to taste the infinite, but with our feet on the ground. And so we hover, halfway between surrender and resistance, never quite falling, never quite free. But look closer. Falling has always been part of the design. The fruit falls to feed the soil. Rain falls to awaken rivers. Stars fall to remind us that even burning can be beautiful. What if life itself is not a ladder to climb, but a dance of descents and returns? What if falling is not failure, but the language of movement, the way the universe breathes us in and out? We are not separate from this rhythm. We are it, the heartbeat between gravity and grace. So when love arrives, when trust trembles in your hands, when life asks you to let go, maybe it's not asking for courage in the way you think. Maybe it's asking for softness, the kind of softness that knows there is no real safety in holding back, only the illusion of control. In the silence beneath effort, there is a deeper pulse, a calm acceptance of the fall, not as an accident, but as a way home. Sometimes, when you are still enough, you can feel how tired the world has become. Not from work or time, but from the endless trying, the striving to become, to fix, to prove. You can sense it in the way people walk, a quiet tension in their shoulders, a rhythm just slightly faster than peace. It's as if we all carry an invisible command. Be more than you are. We measure our worth by the noise we make, by the things we hold, by how long we can keep the mask from slipping. And yet beneath all that doing, there is a subtle ache, the longing simply to rest, to stop negotiating with life. We call it ambition, responsibility, success, but often it's fear, dressed in the clothes of purpose. Fear of falling behind, of being unseen, of becoming no one at all. Look around. The world spins faster each day. Even silence has become a performance. We meditate to be productive. We rest to return stronger. We love so that we may not be alone. Everything has a reason, a reward, a price. And still we feel the hollow space between moments. That space whispers of something forgotten. The art of simply being. Sometimes, in the quiet of night, when the screens dim and the voices fade, you might catch a glimpse of it, a question rising like a soft tide. What if there's nothing wrong with you? But the mind rushes in. No, I must fix, improve, transcend. It's as though we fear our own stillness more than our pain. For in stillness, there is nothing to hold on to. And without something to hold, who are we? This is the root of the restlessness. We confuse movement with meaning. We think that if we stop, life will stop with us. So we keep spinning, even when dizzy. We keep speaking, even when we have nothing left to say. It is a quiet madness, a subtle addiction to becoming. And yet the truth hides gently in the opposite direction, not in more effort, but in less. Not in another name for ourselves, but in the soft dissolving of the one we keep repeating. The pain we feel, the loneliness, the exhaustion, the endless hunger to be enough is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that our being remembers something deeper. It's the soul tugging at the sleeve, whispering, "There is another way." But to hear it, you must first let the noise settle. You must dare to see the machinery of your own striving. Not to judge it, but to watch it like a river. Because the moment you see it clearly, you are already standing on the shore. And perhaps that is where the healing begins, in the gentle recognition that all this grasping, all this running, was never a mistake. It was just another form of love, a confused, frightened attempt to return home. Home. Not as a place, but as a stillness within you. The one that's been waiting ever since you forgot how to fall. Imagine for a moment that nothing in you needs to be corrected. Not your fears, not your doubts, not even your restless mind. Imagine that every tremor, every uncertainty, is simply life trying to find its balance through you. There's a strange freedom in that thought. The freedom of not needing to be more. The freedom of breathing without direction. We have spent so long trying to master the world, to make it predictable, explainable, safe. But what if the point was never mastery? What if it was intimacy? To be intimate with existence is to meet it as it comes, to see that the wind does not argue with the branches, and the sea does not resist its own tide. The river doesn't apologize for its curves. It simply moves, finding the easiest way home. You too are allowed to flow. Even your resistance is part of the current. You cannot fall out of the river, only into it. Somewhere long ago, we began to believe that control is safety and surrender is weakness. But look at the trees. They survive not by stiffness, but by bending. They yield, and that is why they do not break. Perhaps awareness begins like this, not as an idea or a goal, but as a softening. A quiet willingness to see that the very thing you have been fighting was never your enemy. Pain, confusion, fatigue. They are not signs of being lost. They are invitations to listen differently. They ask, can you stay? Can you be here without fixing? Awareness is not a flame that burns through illusion. It is the light that makes even illusion visible. It does not demand change. It allows everything to reveal itself. Notice how even your breath teaches this. It comes, it goes. Each inhale a taking in, each exhale a letting go. Neither can exist without the other. The breath does not cling to itself, and yet it continues endlessly. When you start to live like that, breathing with life instead of against it, something shifts. The struggle becomes a rhythm. The questions become doorways. And you begin to see that perhaps the fall was never a mistake, but a movement toward wholeness, because falling, too, is a form of trust. It says, I no longer need to hold the sky in place. It says, I am willing to be carried. To awaken is not to rise above the world, but to feel it completely, to see that the same hand that breaks you open also holds you together. You might find then that life has been whispering all along. You don't need to chase peace. You only need to stop running from it. And in that stillness, in that small and unguarded pause, something begins to shine. not as an achievement, but as a remembering. There comes a moment when the struggle simply grows quiet, not because you've conquered it, but because you've stopped feeding it with resistance. You notice the rhythm of your own breath, the rise, the fall, and realize that life has always been showing you how to let go. Inhale, receive, exhale, release. A perfect balance, a conversation between taking and giving back. This is where understanding turns into presence. It no longer matters whether you call it peace, surrender, or grace. It feels like breathing after holding your lungs too long. It feels like returning. Try for a moment to imagine that nothing stands against you. Not time, not fate, not even the ache of your own longing. Everything that once felt like opposition is only a part of the same motion, like waves rising and falling, each one necessary to the sea. You start to see how every fall you feared was really a kind of flight turned inward. To fall is not to fail. It is to trust gravity to bring you home. When you stop fighting gravity, you begin to move with it. You see that even surrender has its own intelligence, a wisdom older than thought, gentler than any plan you could make. Love, too, is made of this surrender. Not a transaction, not a promise, but the simple willingness to open. To be touched by another, knowing you may be changed forever. And in that opening, you discover something profound. What you give away was never truly lost. It transforms, circulates, returns in ways the mind cannot predict. Life has never been about holding. It's about participating, about allowing the current to move through you and trusting it knows where to go. In that trust, something inside relaxes. You stop asking, what if I fall? And begin to wonder, what if I fly in ways that do not look like flying? You realize that rest does not mean absence of movement, but harmony with it. Silence is not the lack of sound, but the space that gives every sound its depth. And peace is not the end of striving, but the understanding that there was never a war. So, slowly, you loosen your grip on the wheel. The river takes you where it always meant to go. The need to know gives way to the joy of discovering. The need to be right softens into the grace of being real. Everything becomes lighter, even pain. It doesn't vanish. It simply finds its right size. It no longer defines you. It flows through and out like rain through open hands. And you, who once believed you had to fight for every breath, find yourself breathing without trying. You, who feared the fall, begin to feel the beauty of weightlessness. No destination, no perfection to reach. Just this, the vast simplicity of being. In the end, what remains is not triumph, but tenderness. A gentle knowing that you belong here, exactly as you are, held by something that asks nothing in return. And so, here you are, after all the falling, all the searching, all the questions that turned quietly into silence. Notice how, in this stillness, nothing is missing. The air itself seems to breathe you. The heart beats without being told. The universe moves, and somehow you move with it. Perhaps this is what freedom feels like. Not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of belonging. The gentle realization that you were never outside of life, never apart from the tide you feared to trust. Everything you thought you had to become, you already were. Everything you were running from was simply an echo asking to be heard. Now there is space. Space between moments, between thoughts, between who you were and who you keep remembering to be. This space is not empty. It hums softly like light underwater. You begin to sense that love was never an event between two people. It is the field in which all things unfold. the gravity that keeps stars from drifting apart, the silence between the notes that makes music possible. In this light, even falling becomes a form of praise. To fall is to return to what has always held you. To surrender is to remember that you were never separate. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel how the body rises and falls with every breath. That movement, that rhythm, is the same pulse that moves oceans and galaxies. You are not in the world, you are the world, experiencing itself in the shape of you. And when life changes, as it will again and again, when love ends or begins, when the ground shifts, you will know that you can meet it. Not by clinging, not by control, but by listening. Listening the way the shore listens to the sea, with patience, with softness, knowing that each wave leaves and returns, never truly gone. Perhaps this is what wisdom sounds like. Not a voice, but an atmosphere. Not an answer, but a pause. Here, even silence feels alive. Here, the heart no longer argues with time. You may forget this, of course. We all do. You'll rush again, chase again, ache again, and that too will be part of the rhythm. The remembering, the forgetting, the remembering again. But somewhere beneath it all, something steady remains, a quiet pulse that keeps whispering, "You are already home." So let the breath move freely. Let the thoughts drift without anchor. Let life fall through you as it always has. In the end, there is only this, the simple, unhurried truth that you were never lost. Only falling, only becoming, only being. And in that soft descent, the whole universe exhales,